So, first of all, congratulations. I'm grateful to be here, and congratulations for being here, because I think if you're here yesterday and if you're here today, is that you care. Right? We're talking about entrepreneurship education, and you care about it. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity, because I do care about it. I don't think we can teach and be effective if we don't care about what we're teaching and about the people we are trying to help. So I just wanted to share with you 7 lessons that I've learned. I have this habit of trying to find lessons that I can live by. I think we're all researchers. I think we are all in this life trying to find meaning. And my students are trying to find meaning. And I am trying to find meaning. I think that's an enormous research about why we're here and what we want to do with this time life we have. And of course these lessons are, I learned it from mistakes and also from lucky meetings, lucky encounters that I had. I will mention a few of them for you. The first lesson I learned is to ask fundamental questions. Right? When I started teaching, I thought I was very worried about how I would teach and what I would teach. So the content and the way of teaching. With time, that shifted, and I realized that the fundamental questions were not about what and were not about how. They're important, but they are not that fundamental. The fundamental questions are about why, what for. The why is huge. People act because they have a strong motivation, so they have whys. They have strong whys. And I realized that if I spend some time with my students working on the why and how would just fall. Would just fall. So ask fundamental questions. And one fundamental question is, what do I care about? That's a fundamental question for them. Because they won't be good entrepreneurs if they don't care about what they're doing, right? And the best entrepreneurs I know, they really care. They really care about it. And it brings the notion of purpose, of having a meaning in life, of establishing goals and being clear about what is sacred for you. What is sacred for you. That, I think, is super important when we are teaching, and for our lives as well. One of the fundamental, this realization, this lesson came also from a confrontation with difficult times, with mistakes, and in particular with the death of my mom. My mom died when I was 22, and at that point I had 2 questions. I had, what does it mean? And the other question is, what am I going to do with my life? The first question was not that helpful. What does it mean? She died, right? And actually I found out that actually it meant whatever I wanted it to mean. So at the beginning I thought she had abandoned life, and that was difficult. And with time I realized that actually she had done everything she needed to do, and it was her time to go. So that meant she had done her best. Great. That's a powerful belief and realization. The second question is, what am I going to do with my life? That fundamental question, we need to have the courage to ask, and to allow our students to ask, because basically we're all here for a limited time, and we don't know how much. So that kind of fundamental questions is super important. Once you have that clear, the rest will follow. They might be learning by themselves after they have worked on the why. The second thing I learned was to work with the inner child. We all have an inner child, right? We all have been children, right? We have forgotten sometimes, unfortunately. And our children, our child inside, likes to have fun. I have the chance to have a boy, 5 years old now. He's not lacking energy. He's playing all the time. He doesn't want to go to sleep because he's playing, right? So he's having fun. That power, that energy, we kind of lost. Through our educational systems, truth is, I was lucky, because I didn't go to formal education until I was 10. My parents, with other parents, created an informal school. We were very lucky. We had 2 teachers for 8, 10 children. And we were playing all the time. I have no memories of a formal class before the age of 10. So when I joined a formal school, I knew how to read and write. I knew how to do math. I knew some geography, some history. I had the base. I don't remember being taught. We were playing and learning at the same time. Playing and learning at the same time. And then it was my first realization is that in formal education we don't play. Kids don't play. How do you want them to be motivated, right? They don't play. So we are beating our children from the beginning. And then they come to us when they are about 20 or even older, and we ask them, be entrepreneurial. Well, they have been taught from the beginning that there is a right way of doing things. And if they make a mistake, it needs to be corrected. That's how our formal education works. Problem is when you do that, you're disregarding the emotions of the person that you have in front of you. And you're telling there is a best way. There is the right way and the wrong. And what it develops, what does it develop? It develops a tendency of not willing to make mistakes. Then they become adults and we tell them, go, be entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur is to make mistakes, is to be able to make mistakes all the time. Because if you're doing something new, by definition, you cannot know in advance the right way. And it's very unlikely that you're going to get it right from the start. So you need to be able and to allow yourself to make mistakes and to learn from them. Right? And you can only do that if you're having fun. Children are very spontaneous, they are creative, they are natural entrepreneurs, they are natural sellers. Like a 5-year-old boy, when he wants to buy his skate, he can be very convincing and he can be selling. Recent experience, he tried to convince me and I told him, you know, money doesn't go like that. So how does money come then? He said, well, I don't know, you have lots of old toys that you're not using. Do you want to sell them? He went from neighbor to neighbor in order to try to sell his old toys that he's not using. Very persuasive, right? 5 years old. I have students sometimes 25, 45 that are not able to do that because they have been beaten when they're children. So you work with the inner child, with yours and with your students' inner children, right? Children have less boundaries. They have thin boundaries. They are able to empathize. They are able to feel what the others are feeling as if they were also feeling the same thing. They have this sensitivity. And that brings to them a sense of solidarity and integration. If you can keep that for a moment without throwing them in a jungle or in a violent environment, they can keep that. What is important here is to let go judgment. If you judge a kid from little, you create fear and anxiety. If you let them go, when they're ready, they'll flourish. So just trust the child and trust the future. That's something we need to learn. And the more I trust my students, the more they do. The more they do by themselves. And it is sometimes surprising. Remember that you're going to die. Third big lesson. We're all going to die. Sorry. We do not think enough about it. Right? You're going to die, but your children and other species should be able to live. So that brings a new vision here, is that you have a limited amount of time. What do you do there? And you should, of course, enjoy your life, have fun, but you should also make sure that others have the same possibility. That's a responsibility. That brings responsibility to the table. Right? When you are close to death, you start asking fundamental questions, as I was asking when my mother died. Right? When my son was born, he was hospitalized. He was 9 months, hospitalized for 6 weeks. We didn't know what was going to happen. For those 6 weeks, I was asking fundamental questions. I was not worried about, being late for a meeting or watching movies or whatever. I was really asking the fundamental questions. So death is a powerful ally for us to ask the questions that matter. But it also should bring us responsibility that life is a privilege. Right? That life is to be enjoyed and others have the right to enjoy it too, so it can somehow continue. Right? And that responsibility is important because as we build companies, as we think about it, teaching entrepreneurship, we want it to be creating new possibilities and not destroying the possibility of life. Right? So you've got to think about what type of entrepreneurship we want as well. I integrated a little bit that in a social business model canvas. If you're using with the business model canvas, I think we are in 2019. People, 2019, it's time for us to think about the triple bottom line. It's time for us to include in any business model canvas, not only the economic bottom line, which is here, I'll send you the PowerPoint. Not only the economic bottom line, which is here, sorry you can't read, but also a social bottom line, social costs, social effects, and also social gains, positive effects for society, but also an environmental. And to have a bottom line here, is it positive or negative? Are we willing to spend time and energy on projects that have such a bad negative bottom line on the ecological side and on the social side? Just because they're making millions, I think in 2019 that should not be a question anymore. We need to include that. So please, I'll send this to you. Feel free to use it. It's a tool. You can use it or create your own tool. Right? As I saw some of you here, some of you created already. Use them. The important thing is social entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is social. Entrepreneurship is ecological. 2019 we should not be making these distinctions anymore. Right? And established companies, they have a social impact, they have an ecological impact as well. If we want to preserve life and our species, among others, we need to think about those things in business. The change has to go through business as well. So remember, you're going to die, but others have the right to have the same privilege of living. Fourth lesson, work with nature. Nature is bigger than we think. When we have the opportunity to stay with nature, to walk in a forest, when we have the opportunity to do some kind of retreat, we understand that nature is wise, and actually that separation of nature is an illusion. We are part of nature. We are just an expression of life. Right? You drink your water, you say the water is separated from me. Well, once you've drunk it becomes you. What is that? The air we are breathing here, you say it's separated, is it? I don't think so. If it really were separated, we would die. Right? So separation is an illusion. We are part of nature. Right? And nature is the most generous teacher. It's giving us lessons all the time. Right? I heard someone say that the sun was a great teacher because the sun is shining every day for everyone. No distinction. It shines for a hoarder, it shines for good people too. What good example of unconditional love, right? What best example? So nature is a great teacher. Work with nature. The more I work with nature, with my students, more integrated they are, the happier they are, the more they realize that they are not separated from nature. One exercise I do is I make them draw. And I make them draw a good memory when they were healthy, when they were happy, and they were very enthusiastic. Sometimes I have been doing this over the years. Sometimes I have 60 people, 100, sometimes less. And then we share. And I ask them what is common across all these drawings. 99% of the drawings have nature in it. It can be the beach, can be a tree, can be good memories, have nature in them. At least for the moment. Hope it will continue. That we continue to have these good memories. So nature is in us. So you got to work with nature. But the lesson, put first things first. When you ask fundamental questions, it helps us to take perspective and to prioritize. Right? We need that in business. Put first things first means that you know what are your priorities. And I particularly like this hierarchy here, is that being comes before doing, which comes before having. Right? Sometimes people come, when you do coaching for instance, people come and I want to have something, I want to have peace of mind. And my question is, what are you doing to have peace of mind? Well, I'm doing sometimes meditation or yoga, right? So you go to the yoga class, but how are you being? Can you do yoga when washing the dishes or when talking with your wife and your son and your children? And can you be peaceful when you are at work, right? Or when you're driving your car? So I think that's important. That same thing for money. Sometimes I want to have money, right? What are you doing in order to have money? And then, over time, they realize actually you need to be before you actually do something, because you can be doing some things for the wrong reason, right? Are you an abundant person? Are you a generous person? Are you sure that life is going to flow, or are you afraid that you're going to miss and to lack resources? Because that's what you are. And generally, that gets reflected on what you do, despite of what your intentions are. And that gets also reflected in the results you have. So being first, doing, and then have. But first things first. And then this is a recent lesson, is grow to your nature. Grow to your nature. I think if there is a purpose in life that's given to every being alive, is this one, is grow to your nature. Trees grow to their nature. Right? Some of them are very tall, have a main trunk, a sequoia for instance. Others are small and a bit large like that. I don't see them comparing each other and being unhappy. I actually, when I am with the trees, I get the sense that they are quite happy with who they are. They're not asking all those questions and comparing, oh, I wish I could be something else. No. As far as they grow to their nature, it's okay, that's their nature. We as human beings started to ask the non-fundamental questions and started to compare. So we are not very happy and we want to grow beyond our nature. Even if I wish, I would never have 2 meters tall. I would not be 2 meters tall. That's not my nature, right? So grow to your nature. That applies to business as well. There are businesses that by nature should be big. There are others that no, by nature they should stay and remain small. And when they try to outgrow their nature, generally they don't get there, right? Then you have problems. True growth is multidimensional. We only think about growth in economic terms or financial terms, right? Growing sales, growing revenues, growing maybe employees, number of employees, which is very bit better. But true growth is multidimensional. If you think about growth as multidimensional, then it might be limitless. Because you can grow sales, but you can also grow the knowledge of your employees. You can also grow the quality of your products. You can also grow the time people have for themselves in the organization, right? You can also grow yourself spiritually, intellectually, and that's boundless, that's infinite, right? Some dimensions are very limited, right? Sometimes you have, especially the material growth, well, there are limits for that. We are today in a situation in the world where we think about growth, material growth, and basically if we all succeed, we fail, right? If we all succeed to grow without limits, materially, the way we're growing, we will need 5 times the planet. We don't have 5 planets, right? We have just one. So that material growth might have its limits. But if you think about growth as multidimensional, then you can grow in other dimensions, right? You can be an awesome researcher, but learn to play the cello and grow in a different dimension, right? When you grow to your nature, then you are truly free, right? Because then you can really flourish, grow doing different things. Right? When you try to outgrow your nature, generally you become the slave of one dimension. And how many entrepreneurs do we know that are really, just trying to grow business, and just their marriage fell apart. Their children feel that they are actually poor because they don't have a father, right? So growth is multidimensional, and I think the ultimate purpose is to grow to your nature and to think about different dimensions for growth. And my final lesson, again, these lessons are something I'm learning too. I don't claim no ownership of them. You can find them in different places, right? I think that the 7th one is this: yes, we can change for the better. Right? We all can change for the better. Sometimes it's painful, right? Like the cases I told you. It was painful to be with my son for 6 weeks in the hospital, but I changed it for the better. Sometimes it's very fun, right? And it can be very pleasant too. So we can learn and take action, and we need to learn from the inside and change inside, and then promote change in the outside. So that's what I believe, and I would like to finish with a picture here of beetle. Right? So I don't know if you know the story. The beetle, it said, some experts analyzed the beetle and said, this thing cannot fly. Right? It has small wings. It's heavy for its wings. It's not the dynamics, the aerodynamics of the beetle are not the best ones. So it will never fly. This is what the experts said. Fortunately, the beetle doesn't know. Never listened to the experts. So it flies. Thank you.